On this channel, we've made multiple videos covering Aptera, a startup that has been trying to develop an electric tricycle for the past 5 years. They've raised $130 million through equity crowdfunding, which they've burned through but have yet to deliver a single vehicle to a customer. As it turns out, Aptera isn't the first startup to attempt a motorized tricycle. There's another company called Elio Motors, which existed for 14 years before ceasing operations in 2022. In this video, we'll take a look at the dramatic failure of Elio Motors, which has some uncanny similarities to Aptera. Elio Motors was founded in 2008 by its namesake founder Paul Elio. Elio previously ran a small engineering consulting firm which helped industrial companies design new products. In 2009, Elio Motors created a website showcasing the car they intended to make. It had 3 wheels, 2 in the front and 1 in the back. It had 2 seats, one behind the other. This means the car is only half the width of a normal car. A smaller width means less air resistance and better gas mileage. They claimed it would have an ultra-low price of under $7,500. It would get over 70 miles per gallon of gasoline, and it is 5-star safety compliant. I don't know on what basis they said this, as by this point the car had not been built yet, so could not have undergone any safety tests. By 2012, the website hadn't changed much, except now they increased the gas mileage from 70 miles per gallon to 75. And instead of saying the price will be below $7,500, they now say it will be way under $7,500. 2013 is when Elio Motors really started to make headlines. They announced they had leased a portion of an abandoned General Motors plant in Shreveport, Louisiana. They showed off their prototype and said they would enter production in 2014. They announced that the car would get 84 miles per gallon and cost just $6,800. Thanks to its unique design, high fuel efficiency, and cheap price tag, it quickly gained a lot of hype in the media. Let's watch a short clip of Fox News talking about Elio in 2014.
Well, with the national average for gas prices at $3.69, how would you like to drive a car that you can get more than 80 miles per gallon?
Wow, okay, what kind of hybrid is that? Now, what if I told you the car only has 3 wheels? The Elio promises to do just that. Joining us right now is the founder of Elio Motors, Paul Elio. Paul, congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Wow.
It is a fun vehicle for sure. 3 wheels, and you say that the tandem seating is responsible for that great gas mileage.
Exactly. So at highway speeds, most of your fuel goes to moving air. We're half as wide, we move half as air, we get double the mileage.
Wow.
In 2014, Elio engaged in various publicity stunts. For example, they took their prototype to a comic convention and asked attendees which superhero would be most likely to ride in it. Generating media attention was very important for Elio. In the beginning, Paul Elio had talked to wealthy investors and venture capitalists trying to secure funding, but this was largely unsuccessful. One of the reasons institutional investors were hesitant to fund Elio Motors is that it shared striking similarities to the 20th Century Motor Car Corporation. This company was founded in the 1970s. They promised to make a 3-wheeled car called the Dale, which would have fuel economy of 70 miles per gallon. The company ended up being a total fraud, with their prototype being little more than an empty shell. It was such a sensational story that HBO eventually made a documentary about the company and its eccentric founder, Liz Carmichael. 40 years later, we have Elio Motors essentially proposing the exact same thing. A 3-wheeled car that will supposedly have extremely good gas mileage. With institutional investors skeptical, Elio needed alternate methods to raise funds. So they started accepting reservation deposits. If you were interested in buying an Elio car, you could make a deposit of between $100 and $1,000. There were options for both refundable and non-refundable deposits. Larger deposits had priority over smaller deposits, and non-refundable deposits had priority over refundable ones. So if you wanted to make sure you received one of the first Elio cars off the production line, you could make a $1,000 non-refundable deposit. As of September 30th, 2015, Elio had raised approximately $19.6 million from approximately 46,000 reservations. By this point, the launch date for the vehicle was pushed back to the end of 2016. In a regulatory filing, Elio said that it expects customer reservations to be a significant source of short-term liquidity in the future. With each progressive step in their development, they experience a surge in reservations. But there's only a limited amount of money you can raise from customer reservations. Very few people would be interested in purchasing multiple vehicles, so you can raise at most $1,000 from each person. While Elio did garner a certain following of hardcore fans, the strange form factor of the vehicle means it will always be niche at best. The company was quickly running through the pool of interested customers. As we explained earlier, institutional investors were never interested in funding Elio Motors, so their only hope to raise capital was from unsophisticated retail investors. Prior to 2015, the only way to raise money from retail investors was to go public on a major stock exchange. Being a public company requires significant amounts of paperwork and regulatory obligations, which can cost a few $1,000,000 per year. Given how tiny Elio was, this would represent an exorbitant expense. Also, this was before the SPAC era, so they would have had to do a traditional IPO. It's doubtful that any investment bank would have been willing to underwrite Elio's IPO, so going public was not a viable option. Up until 2015, only accredited investors such as venture capital firms were allowed to invest in private companies. Venture capitalists have the resources and expertise to conduct due diligence before making an investment. At least they're supposed to. Amateur investors lack this capability. If they invest in unvetted private startups, there's a high chance they'll end up investing into scams. This all changed in 2015 when the SEC adopted new rules allowing privately held companies to start raising capital from non-accredited investors. This is called equity crowdfunding. There are some limitations, and issuers must give some standardized disclosures, but the regulatory burden is only a fraction of what is required for public companies. Elio wasted little time in taking advantage of this. They launched a campaign on an equity crowdfunding platform called Start Engine, where they were able to raise $17 million from 6,300 investors. The average investment size was about $2,700. In the prospectus, they said they would use the proceeds for building and testing prototypes, engineering design, and of course paying salaries to their senior executives. Founder and CEO Paul Elio paid himself a salary of approximately $200,000 per year. None of the crowdfunding money would go to building the vehicles intended for customer deliveries. To reach the vehicle production stage, Elio estimated they would need an additional $240 million. They applied for a $185 million loan from the Department of Energy's Advanced Technology Vehicle Manufacturing Program. If approved, this would cover most of their funding needs. The Department of Energy rejected Elio's loan application. Once Elio was rejected by the Department of Energy, their probability of success declined to approximately 0%. Their only sources of funding were customer deposits and equity crowdfunding. Neither of these avenues were remotely capable of delivering the $240 million needed to enter production. In 2016, they published a video from inside their factory in Shreveport, Louisiana. You can see the factory is almost completely empty, except for a little bit of abandoned equipment. They continued hand-building prototypes, but it had a bit of a farcical quality to it, as they now lacked any realistic plan to enter production. 2017 was a very bad year for Elio Motors. They filed an IPO registration statement indicating that they planned to take the company public, but the IPO never happened. They were presumably unable to find an investment bank willing to underwrite the IPO. In a desperate attempt to raise more funds, they ran a promotion whereby if you made a non-refundable deposit, you will get 25% off the purchase price of your Elio vehicle if and when it ever enters production. By this point, Elio had collected $27 million from 65,000 depositors. Remember that Elio leased a factory that used to be owned by General Motors. After General Motors abandoned the factory, it was taken over by the state of Louisiana. They agreed to lease it to Elio Motors because Elio said they would hire 1,500 people to work at the plant. Of course, this never happened. By 2017, the state government was growing frustrated with the lack of progress. Let's watch a short clip from a local news station.
To try and get answers, the State Commerce Committee will meet here in this room in Government Plaza to gather information and testimonies from key players who are tasked with bringing jobs back to the plants.
What we're hoping to do is to at least understand more in the timeline of when would we anticipate there being jobs there as part of the Elio Motors.
Commerce Committee Chair Thomas Carmody says Elio Motors CEO Paul Elio has agreed to be at the meeting. But according to this email from Carmody, Elio first wanted to speak with the committee before the meeting, but requested each committee member sign a confidentiality agreement. The House of Representatives legal staff denied Elio's request, saying it would break Louisiana open meeting laws.
This is something that needs to take place in the public. It needs to be open, transparent, and above board.
According to Carmody, while in town, Elio will also bring a request to the state lawmakers.
Mr. Elio had said that he wanted to take the opportunity to solicit the support from the committee members for a financial infusion. I think this would be a perfect venue for him to do so.
According to the company's SEC filing, Elio Motors still needs around $300 million to get production started and has an accumulated deficit of $111 million. Carmody seemed unaware of Elio's financial situation.
He's in the hole over $100 million?
From what I understand,
And then he needs an additional cash infusion of $312 million?
Right. And I've also heard that he's going to be asking the state for money. Have you heard that?
I thought that was a joke.
Caddo Commission President Matthew Lynn does not mind the state stepping in.
I'm thrilled that the state is getting involved in trying to bring the truth to the surface.
As far as the reported financial request Elio may be making at the meeting, Lynn is in disbelief.
It's a slap in the face that he would ask. Of course, they say it doesn't hurt to ask, but in this scenario, I don't know if that's true or not.
But a lack of funding wasn't Elio's only problem. Under Louisiana state law, if you want to sell cars, you need to be registered as a manufacturer. While Elio had not delivered any cars to customers, they were accepting reservations. The Office of Motor Vehicles argued Elio is not allowed to do this. Elio argued that because they have never delivered a car to a customer, they are not a manufacturer, and thus the regulations should not apply to them. Let's watch a short clip of Elio's lawyer arguing with the Office of Motor Vehicles.
Elio attorneys also argued they can't break state manufacturing law if they haven't manufactured any cars.
Well, is there any other evidence that you have that we haven't discussed that Elio's manufacturing a motor vehicle or a motorcycle or a motorcycle?
A question that did not sit well with the commission's chairman.
Now you're trying to say you're not even manufacturing when you've induced people. How this great thing's going to get 84 miles a gallon, it's going to do this. I think it's almost disgraceful.
Thank you for your opinion.
The Office of Motor Vehicles fined Elio $500,000 and ordered them to stop accepting reservation deposits. By this point, Elio was broke, having just $4,444 of cash on their balance sheet, so they had no means of paying the fine. The fine was eventually decreased to $38,000. After this, Elio went dark, making no public announcements. It seemed like the company had ceased operations. While Elio never conducted an IPO, their shares were traded on over-the-counter markets. These were the shares they sold in their crowdfunding campaign. In 2015, the shares traded for as high as $40 apiece. This technically gave the company a market capitalization slightly in excess of $1 billion. However, the trading volume was extremely low, so this valuation was not really meaningful. By 2021, the share price had fallen to a few cents, and trading volume was almost non-existent. In September of 2021, they announced they would build an electric version of their three-wheeled vehicle. This caused a small pump in the stock price. Of course, this electric vehicle was never delivered. Elio never made any official announcement that it is ceasing operations. But in December of 2022, its website went dark. So it appears that the long and pitiful story of Elio Motors has finally come to an end. 65,000 people who paid $27 million of deposits will never see their cars nor their money. Alright guys, that wraps it up for this video. What do you think about Elio Motors? Let us know in the comments section below. As always, thank you so much for watching and we'll see you in the next one. Wall Street Millennial, signing out.